folks, we're just doing a quick audio test. Jen, let's see. Jennifer, let me see if I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Nope. Okay, great. All right. Well,
You still
we'll be
can't
right
hear
back,
me.
y'all. We got more to figure out. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Transgender Show. I'm your host, Emily. Tonight, I'm very excited to welcome to the show Jennifer Marie. Jennifer is an author and a coach and the founder of GenSpire, a business dedicated to fostering understanding, acceptance, and empowerment for individuals, families, and organizations navigating the complexities of gender identity. Let's go ahead and bring Jennifer on. Welcome to the show, Jennifer Marie.
Hi, Emily. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you on. I'm so glad to have the chance to always talk to somebody and get their experience of gender transition and that sort of thing, but then to also speak with somebody else who has focused on advocacy and helping people make it through transition. It's always exciting.
I love talking to anybody about all of this stuff. So I'm so excited. We're gonna have so much fun tonight.
Yes, yes. Okay, with that, then let's jump into it. My favorite question to start with, because it's a nice little softball one, is how did you choose a name that suited you?
Well, my name came when I never really thought of a name too much, to be honest, until about April 14th, 2021, when I went online and I was going to try and join a photo contest, and I had to create a Facebook account. And when it came to creating this Facebook account, it was like, what name do I want to use? Because I'm not going to use my old Facebook account. And so I came down to this, and it was like, what name should I use? And honestly, it took 2 seconds, and it came to me. Jennifer was one of the names my sister would call me when I was doing something girly or when I was dressed up growing up. And so I just knew I didn't need to create a name. I already had one.
I love it. And I love those ways that family helps come up with the name, even if it's unintentional.
I know. It was just the perfect way. Yeah, it made things easier. I didn't have to do any work, and go, now what name do I want either? It was like, I already have one. This is fantastic.
Now, I know for my process, I put together a list of all the names that I thought were feminine and I liked and all of that, and then had to go through and kind of cross-reference and remove any that was, a friend's name, someone's child, pet, that sort of thing. Did with a name like Jennifer, Emily is a pretty common one too. Was that kind of hard, or did you just, since you'd already kind of have it baked in, was that not a process you had to go through?
It wasn't a process I went through, to be honest. The only thing I hated about it was that, like, I want to say 90% of trans people pick the name Jennifer or go by Jen or Jenny or something, it was a really common number. And I was like, it's already my name. I don't really care, like, it's okay. And same with Marie. Marie's my middle name is a really common name as well. And I was like, it's okay. Luckily, I didn't have any Jennifers in my life that were really that important that I was worried about. So,
yeah, I was just wondering, like, I didn't realize how common Emily was until I chose it and started using it, and then people are like, "Oh yeah, I know a lot of trans Emilys," and I'm like, "Okay, all right, well."
Okay. What was your second? I'm kind of curious if I can interview you two a little bit and have some fun. What was your second favorite name?
Did I have a second favorite? Gosh, did I have something else in the running? I know I've had more since then. I think I've always really loved the name Stephanie, but at the time I had a very close friend named Stephanie. And then sort of like I always liked things that seemed more Eastern European, like a Tatiana. There were a couple in there that I really liked, but when it came down to it, it's like, yeah, I know too many people with these names, and somehow settled on Emily, and it really kind of stuck.
It suits you well. I love it.
Isn't that a fun thing to hear? Do you hear that much that this name suits you? And at least at first for me, maybe more so because no one had ever called me that before. It was part of that process of learning to accept myself as a trans woman, accept that I was, trans enough, that I was good enough as a trans person to be able to start using a feminine name for myself. And then, yeah, it was just that people calling you that and going like, huh, that's interesting. It causes some nice feels, but it's also like, does it fit? Is it right? Those sort of things.
Yeah, I could totally see that, if like if you hadn't been called it before and like trying to feel like, is it exactly what I want? Because you got to you got to go through all these names and then think like, what do I want? Now, does it fit me perfectly? I think that's quite an interesting process that you went through, and
Yeah.
most people go through, I think, too. Yeah.
Well, and that's the big thing that I have come to learn through my transition. I'm sort of past that, but it was a big thing. You go through this life feeling like, okay, things just aren't right. Like things just don't feel right. I don't understand why. I don't understand, people of my assigned gender, like how they seem to think and all that. It doesn't fit for me. And you come to this brilliant realization that seems to solve everything in your mind, put all the pieces together. I'm transgender. That's why I'm addicted to the cross dressing and all this other stuff. And then
Yep.
you try to start living as your new gender, and nothing feels nothing feels automatic or familiar. The way you walk, the way you are talking, the way you're moving your hands, like what do I do? It all feels like you're trying and like you're acting. And just sort of that coming to that realization that yes, this is the process. This is what every cis person goes through, but they're taught second by second, every day, reinforced, shown, steered, all of that. Whereas we just kind of come into this realization suddenly and then, are trying to live this way. It doesn't mean that you're not really a woman or a man, that has been, living the wrong way most of your life. It just means that you weren't conditioned that way. So the process is learning, acting, trying, and it doesn't feel natural, and it's not going to. That's the process for us because we're starting so late and going into it. Were there things that first off, do you agree with that? And were there things in your transition that sort of aligned with that, of like that causing that self-doubt, because it's like, shouldn't this just feel right to me? Shouldn't this just be the way I am?
Well, first off, I call it the awkward years. I call it the awkward stage, really. Like we all go through it, and I went through less of it. And the way I encourage my clients to do as well is, if you can go through some of the awkward stage. If you can do that before you transition, like socially, it kind of makes things a little bit easier. So for me, like I started on hormones in October, November of 2022, and I came out about a year later, October 5th, 2023, and I went through a lot of the awkwardness. I started growing my hair out. By the time I pierced my ears, I was doing a full face regimen and all of these things, right? And by the time I came out, I looked very androgynous, very non-binary in that presentation. Um, Nobody said anything into my life about it, other than everybody afterwards noticed that my nails were long, and I was like, yeah, there's a reason, because like that made me feel connected to me. But you talking about these things, like mine was a little bit different. So you're talking about how like almost pretending to be feminine or whatever these things, right? Well, I went through the time where, probably even before I started on hormones, I was like needing to feel more like Jen all the time. And so I went through this where no one was watching. And I recommend anybody that's wanting to feel more feminine or in these ways, even when you're not transitioning or whatever, when no one's watching, act how you want to act, like move how you want to move. Like I did that. I changed how I walked. I changed how I started being more fluid and with everything, with how I moved in things when no one was watching. And I mean, I'd go around a corner and sometimes I'd walk that way. It was kind of fun. But it was, but that really, it was kind of a practicing in a sense for a while. But then when I started on hormones, for me, everything got looser, and honestly, it started immediately within that first month. It became more natural, and it became like something where I just naturally did stuff, and I literally had to think about like I was at the time, we can get more into this stuff later, but I was at the time married and did not want my wife at the time to know that I was on hormones. And so I was like, oh gosh, we got to hide things. We have to like, don't move that way. Like by the time I came out, somebody told me after when I came out to them, they said, you sashayed, like, and I kind of just maybe I thought you were gay, I was like, yeah, nope, that's definitely not the case. So we all go through this awkward stage. I went through some of it after I came out too, because it takes, I don't know, probably a year and a half or so, typically, I think, at least for me, that's what it took. But yeah, it's a process we go through.
I've heard it before, so you're not the first, but wow, starting hormones before coming out to your spouse is that's a bold move. That shows, just sort of how desperate you are to get out of this and to start living your true self.
Yeah. Well, I started on hormones because I didn't tell her about it because I had told her I was a crossdresser before we got married. And it was the hardest part of our marriage and all these things. And we kept talking about these things. And even as I realized who I was, I shared it with her all the way up until the point that I was transgender, was going to transition. And she's Southern Baptist and always made it very clear she was never going to stay with me and not okay if I transitioned and all these things. And apparently, one point in my life, I even promised I was never going to transition because I never thought I'd be here. And she made it abundantly clear that this was not going to be okay. And so I was like, I needed to start on hormones without her knowledge because I needed to know for me if I felt right in my body before I blew up my marriage to the full extent at the end and left. And it took me 2 weeks on hormones to finally feel right in my body for the first time in my life. And I realized, yeah, I got to move out.
Wow, that is very difficult. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense though. Yeah, trying to make sure that that this was the right thing for you before you sort of blow everything up.
Yeah, it was like that was kind of like my last confirmation. Like I knew that I was transgender and I thought I needed to do this, but before I just like made that last step, I was like, I want to try this. And I'm glad I did the way I did it.
Bryn in the chat, who I believe is someone that you might know, they
Yep.
mentioned once their egg cracked, they just went full on into it. And I wish I was that way. I still, deep into my transition, maintained a lot of fear. I mean, as I still sort of harbor some about surgeries and sort of the permanence of that. But I'm finally to the point of like, yes, I really want to, the whole thing, the works, give me give me the full treatment. And it just has taken me so long to get there. I love, and I'm sort of jealous of the people who are able to realize that they're transgender, accept themselves, and just go right into everything. And let's move. Let's get this done. But I also appreciate the fact that all of our journeys are different, and what's right for one person isn't right for another person. And along those lines, a similar thought is, oh, if I'd transitioned earlier, if only I'd transitioned earlier. And I'm pretty confident after years of retrospection, I'm pretty confident that I transitioned at the time that was right for me. And, I'm on the path that is the right one, considering all the stuff that I had going on. What have you run into with your clients and the people that you've talked to?
That's exactly how I feel about my life. Like I feel like things happen for a reason. I wouldn't have my kids if I would have transitioned earlier. All types of things in my life, and so I believe things happen for a reason at the time they did. One thing that kind of came up for me when you're talking was that I think the biggest problem that we make, as I call everybody in the group, gender diverse people, is that we all compare ourselves to each other, and this is a big topic that we're talking about in my community called the Genspire Sisterhood, and we're doing in our group coaching session tomorrow. We're going to be talking about how comparison is such a problem, and because it really messes all of us up. I mean, yeah, there can be some good, you can learn some things, whatever, but it brings up your dysphoria to a new level. And so I encourage people to take a step back and look at one of my secrets for me is I've always been the person that has gone and like said, I'm gonna look at my history, like where have I come from and where am I at now, and stop focusing as quite as much on everybody else and where am I going. It's hard, but I've done a lot of work to do that.
Well, yeah, and from my personal story, I started on Instagram. That was once I kind of put the pieces together, I wanted to find other trans people, so I went straight to Instagram and started to connect
Mhm.
to trans women. And it I think it took me a while to realize the dangers of what I had done, getting wrapped up in the social media. And it was in the era where filters had started. It was, so Snapchat
Yep.
was well in, getting pretty old even, and everybody was used to using filters. And so, you know, the social media posts just in general are so curated that you can't really trust it. But then you add filtering and things, and yeah, it's a massive pitfall for you because all you see is you know is beauty and perfect
Yeah.
femininity, and oh my god, this person knows how to take a beautiful selfie and I can't even do that. Those sort of things. It's terrible.
Exactly. It really is terrible. I mean, I've always been the person that try to use hardly any filters. That's kind of what I've always tried to be as real as possible with people. That's one thing I think my followers have really resonated with. And um, yeah, I think that's. But I also wanted to talk about how like you mentioned like the dangers of social media in that way. And yes, but social media was like one of the biggest tools of my journey. It
Yeah.
was like it was it was my therapy. Honestly, I grew all this following online because I was sharing the most inner parts of my soul with random strangers because I felt safe to do it. And like the fact that I didn't have my last name out there, it wasn't anywhere tied to my old life, all of these things. And so I'd share these deep personal posts, trying to understand myself, but also kind of sharing it because it was helping other people. And I created a community where I could share everything with people and talk personally with people when I didn't have anybody here in the Midwest or in my area that I could talk to.
Mm. Well, yeah, and one of the things that I did want to add that was a little bit contrary to the way I was talking about social media, you're absolutely right. The before and after posts, those, the journey, the this is what I look like before and this is what I look like now. That was the reason I was able to actually start transition, I believe. It
Yeah.
was seeing some of the people on some of the celebrities, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think it was Caitlyn Jenner that was the one that finally made the light
Yeah.
bulb go off in my head. And then going to social media, and it was Instagram and seeing the before and afters that really solidified in my brain that this was something that I could do. It was always something that
Mhm.
was so far out. There was no way. It was a completely different life, and all of that. There's no way that it could apply to me. And then I just, got sort of obsessed with those, and I'm like, oh, but you can go from this to that. It's possible. And yeah, that
Yeah.
so I definitely credit Instagram specifically for allowing me to start my journey and be as successful at it as I have.
I think it's a good point. I think it's a great point, and like you talk about the before and after, or the transformation Tuesday nowadays, what we do, right? Like
Mm,
where it does make you see like, oh wow, they don't look at all the same, like, and what could I do with that? And then you also get into like the the face app, like how can I make myself like what could I look like? Now I can see the eye roll too. And it is a very dangerous game. And I always try to tell people, take it with a grain of salt. Like you're never gonna look like what you want to. And
no.
and and
Mm-mm.
to be honest, like I feel more natural and beautiful the way that I am than anything I ever created in Face App that I did. But it also like was my way at that time of like when I couldn't dress and feel like I wanted to feel, I could do it instantly. And so it was kind of a little bit of gratification in that way too.
So what
But
was it?
don't put too much pressure on it, people. Please, please
Oh,
don't put pressure on the fact that I've got to look like FaceApp is creating me to be. You know,
yeah, because that, the pitfalls we were talking about, the dangers we were talking about social media, about comparing yourself to others, when when it's comparing you to yourself, it's really easy to think of that in terms of what you should look like, even
yeah.
more than what you could look like. It's like, well, I should be able to look like this, so why the hell, like, what's wrong? Why am I, kind of a thing. It opens up a whole nasty can of worms. And luckily, I think it was really, really, really early on where I realized, like, I'm never gonna look like any of these, and I need to stop messing with it and just be what I'm gonna be. And that was an important one. What was it that took you over that line? You said you identified as a crossdresser, and at least semi publicly you were out to your wife. What was it that helped you get over that hurdle from identifying and personifying crossdresser versus trans woman?
So I went from being a identifying honestly, okay, clearly, I was actually out. Not even was I outside the LGBTQIA plus community, I was against it. Uh, I was and still am a Christian, but I was against it, and I was a lot of repression. Eventually, I went through some stages and learned some things and had some resources where I realized that I call myself dual gender, bigender, and then I call myself gender fluid without the fluid, and I realized that's total BS. There is no gender fluid without the fluid. um, and then, but then it really what it was one of the girls' weekends. And I recommend that anybody who can try to find some kind of way to connect with people in person, the connection is and the growth is immensely important and valuable. And it's one of the things I'm trying to create like retreats and weekends for people, for anyone that wants to sign up and be part of this kind of stuff. Um, because it is a really powerful thing. I went on a girls' weekend retreat, stayed in a house with about 9 other girls, and I say girls, but none of us were transitioning. And we stayed in a house in Atlanta, and it was fun. I knew the weekend would be fun, affirming. My ex was really against me going to this thing, and I was like, I got to do this for me,
Mm,
and um, but I wasn't anticipating there'd be anybody that was transitioning there. And we met up with a girl, Erin Baker, who I'd seen on Instagram, and I didn't know she was going to be there. And she started talking to us, and we had fun time. But we were sitting at this table, and I sat across from her at dinner, and she started. I told her my story. I'm a very open person. For anybody that doesn't know, like, I share too much, and that's always been my thing, and is what it is. But I share too much, and then she shared all of her story, and as she shared her story, for the first time in my life, I started bawling, and I said, "Your story resonates with me so deeply, and I feel like I've been questioning it for a while. I've been calling myself trans questioning that I feel like I'm transgender." And she said, "I think you are too." And then I did some other steps after that to kind of confirm it. And then, yeah, it was that was my first aha moment
mhm.
that I needed to do this.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a similar but sort of opposite experience when I tried to find community the first time. I was identifying as a crossdresser, and I found a transgender meetup group. And yeah, there must have been something on the meetup that said, like, it would include me or whatever. So I went to this, but I was sure that I was going to be tarred and feathered and run out on a rail because I wasn't really trans. I was just a crossdresser. And I thought, that I would be seen as a poser and a fake and all of that. And when I got there, it was actually the entire spectrum. It was the full spectrum. Well, not the full spectrum, because the leader was just starting hormones the next day. She was the first. Everybody else was kind of, cross-dressing and on their
Mhm.
journey. But there was somebody who showed up there in boy mode and brought a friend the sort of a security measure. And so yeah, it was immediate where I'm like, okay, yeah, I can exist in this space. And that was another step
Yep.
towards getting to that level of acceptance of like, again, oh God, you talk about the sort of internalized homo and transphobia because of upbringing and stuff like that. Oh, uh, I think that was one of the reasons I eventually pulled back from that group, was just sort of like associating with other trans people was uncomfortable for me. I was dealing with
Mm.
trying to accept myself, but I was really having a hard time accepting others at that time, and I had a lot of growth to do there, a lot of growing to do to get to accept and understand the whole thing. Because yeah, it was come out, so come to understand myself, come out, go public, and then find community all at about the same time. So yeah, like there weren't a lot of answers, there wasn't a lot of understanding, definitely. And I just love to bring that up when I can and share with people that these internal struggles, this fight that you have, and the fact that you have a hard time accepting others sometimes in your group is all part of the process. Like it is a whole process. And you can't think negatively of yourself because you're having some of these thoughts and some of these struggles, even if like like yeah, it's bizarrely self-defeating, thinking negatively of the people in your community that you're trying to join and be part of.
Absolutely. Repression is a really powerful thing, that's why I say a lot of people who are spreading hate about on my Instagram or things like that are really repressing something,
Hmm.
and we are proof that that is true. You
Yeah,
know, like,
as a
I'm proof because I literally judged my gay friends and, like, because I was queer myself and I wouldn't admit it to myself.
yeah, if you're trying to fight yourself, it's really hard to accept others who, and I think that that's one of the big things that brings some of that hate towards us, right? Is other people seeing that we're able to be ourselves, we're able to live in ways that they think that they can't. And so I think that's a deep-rooted source for some of the vitriol that we get. You've
Mhm.
mentioned multiple times being a public persona on social media, and you just sort of touched on it there. How was that process for you, getting past the hate and the external doubt of who you really are as you're trying to come into acceptance and love of who you are yourself?
Well, luckily, when I was in my most vulnerable stage, when I was, like, sharing these intimate parts of my soul, things were not, as loosey-goosey as they are now. That people weren't able to just say whatever the hell they wanted to, and, like, on social media. I started on Facebook, and then I came in Instagram, and I didn't hardly receive any hate at that point. I was just, like, growing it. I was still public. I was public, I wasn't private, but I was still a public account, and it started growing quickly and having people be nice and stuff. It wasn't until probably the last year or so that, like, the hate really started to really flood in. I occasionally get, like, a couple nasty emojis or something, but whatever kinda thing. But, now I receive hundreds of thousands of hate messages a week, between all my social media accounts, and it took at first, I was like, "Okay, whatever," and then, like, I kinda thought, "Oh, I can kind of, like." First, I thought I was gonna hide it all. I was like, "I'm just gonna hide each one," and like, "My followers don't need to see this. It's not good for them. It's not good for me," and then I realized, "Oh, it's engagement." And so I'm like, "No, I'm actually gonna, like, let it go out there." And I started, like, looking at it. I might have replied a little bit too, and then it really started, like, really flood in hundreds, thousands, right? And I was like, "I'm not gonna look at it." But when I really saw the numbers that were coming in, uh it was daunting about how much hate how much not even the comment typically as much as how much people hated me.
Hmm.
And then I changed my mindset and I started just doing something silly, and I was like, "I'm gonna do a dance each time I see somebody say something nasty, especially if I read their comment. I'm gonna, like, go, like, "Thanks for the engagement, asshole."
Hmm.
Like, that's exactly kinda what I did, because it was like, "You are propelling me." nowadays I receive all kinds of it, and most of my engagement is from haters because there's volumes of it, and I think there's bots out there doing this stuff too. People need to realize, but but for me, I have to look at it in a way of that I know exactly who I am, and so I don't really care what everybody else thinks. And I've got to this confidence point of my life, and I love helping people do that, where I don't care about what anybody thinks except for the people that I care about, and I care what they think.
Mm. The old adage, the people that matter don't care, and the people that care don't matter. Yeah.
Yep.
What did you find more difficult in your transition, coming to a level of self-acceptance or telling others and making it public?
Accepting it for myself, because I fought it for over 30 years. I started when I was 4 years old, and I cross-dressed hundreds of times in my life. And when everybody was gone, every single time when people were gone, I dressed every time, and I got caught once, but but I but I dressed and never allowed myself to think that it was anything more than just cross-dressing. And I didn't even put a term to it then. I just like when I wasn't doing it, when I got a computer, I was looking up, like men dressed as women or gender bender things, just like literally trying to find these things. And the next stage after that was seeing stories. I found Storyside and like Fiction Mania and those things, and then that's when it became sexual a little bit for me, because everything when you're a teen is sexual. And when you read those stories, it was kind of my way to release in that way.
Yeah.
But even then, I was still like, no, I'm not transgender. Literally 5 years ago, I was looking at trans people and thinking, I feel so bad for them. They are so confused. Why, like that's and that sounds like an awful way to live. That just sounds awful. And gosh, was I repressing? I mean, look at me now. Like, was I repressing myself or what? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the tough part for me. When it came to telling other people, I came up with a whole entire system. I came out to 100 people before I came out publicly, and it was hard. It was a lot, but I came out to people one by one in order that I feel like people were going to be accepting or at least kind and understand.
That's the key. Yeah.
So, yep.
That's definitely something we talk a lot about here, is build your support network. Start with the people that you know are going to support you no matter what, and work out from there. And you know what? It's tough. One of my favorite questions, and I'll ask you this in just a second, but is who supported you that you weren't expecting? Because you can go into this and expect certain people to accept you and they don't, or it's harder for them than you would hope it would be, and the opposite can be true. And the thing that I settled on was that you have to give people the chance to accept you. You can't just go based on, I'm pretty sure they're not going to accept me, so I'm going to avoid the conversation in any way I can. If you give the important people in your life, if they're not super tied in, then you can let them go. But for important people in your life, grandparents, the cousins, the people that you see every once in a while, and it's important for you for them to know, but you're a little trepidatious about it. Like I said, I feel like it's important to give people the chance to accept you, and a lot of times you'll be surprised by what you do get out of them.
Absolutely. Though I tell people the secret to how I came out to 100 people, I didn't hardly have a single bad interaction, was the fact, here's how I said it. I said, I don't need you to accept me. I know who I am. I just need you to be able to support me and be kind. And so that's kind of where it was for me.
That's a really great way of doing it, saying, I'm not looking for anything from you. You don't have to, expel any particular energy or whatever. I just want to share this with you, and, want you to accept
Hmm?
accept me for who I am, and we'll deal we'll deal with the rest later. Kind of. I like that.
Yeah. I came out to a Baptist pastor in my Rotary Club that way, and literally like had those conversations with people like that. And it
Mm,
wasn't my pastor by any means or whatever, but it was like, literally like people that were hard, like really conservative people, and they were all kind and asked good questions and had great conversations every time.
mhm. So back to that key question: was there anybody that accepted you that you weren't expecting, or that you were pretty sure wouldn't accept you?
Yeah, there's someone and I talk about him a couple times in my best-selling book, Ask Me Anything, and his name's Billy, and it was this older Black gentleman that I'd become friends with through business, and he and I were talking about going to business together at one point, and and that was even kind of before he knew about me. And he's very Christian and conservative. Well, actually not really conservative, I guess, but he's very Christian. And I thought Billy's going to tell me exactly what he thinks, and I was like, this could either go really bad or this could go like okay. And so what happened was the day before I'd arranged to have lunch with Billy, I I went to an LGBT chamber event, and I walked in for the first time ever with Jen on my name tag in guy mode or whatever kind of, yeah, in that way. And I had Jen on my name tag, and I walked in, and the president goes, "Guess who's here?" I was like, "Who?" And they're like, "Billy." And I was like, "No way. Billy's here?" And then I finally saw him, and I was like, "I guess I can't go anywhere without running into you." And he's like, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, and I showed him my name tag. He's like, "Jen, that's really cool. Okay, like, I'm here because my son told me he's gay, and and I just told him I love you. I didn't say but. I didn't say I didn't say but or like but I'll always love you, or it's okay kind of thing. Whenever it was just like I just love you because I just love him, and I was like, dang, Billy, like it was just like the best response I could have. And then we had a fantastic conversation the next day at lunch where I told him my story, and it was beautiful.
Hmm. I usually save audience questions for the second half, but I thought that this one tied in so well with what we were saying that we might as well get into it now. Uh, Someone in the chat, that their YouTube handle is Frank Pierce, asked, what happens when you don't know who you are, when you haven't figured that out yet? And I'm assuming what they're asking, and correct me if I'm wrong here in the chat, but is getting to the feeling that you need to make a change, that something's wrong, and you want to start doing, you at least want to start exploring, and you don't have all the answers yet. How would you suggest somebody navigate that?
First off, we put too much pressure on you have to figure everything out so quickly. Like I don't know who I am. Where am I going to go? Like and I know I did the same kind of thing. And you have to take a step back and think that's okay. And then focus on what what makes me feel happy, and where can I find that middle ground? Like where can I find a balance that I will be happy in my life? And then you try to find a balance, and I call it gender equilibrium, where your life and your gender identity balance. And when it doesn't balance, you change something up, and then you come back to it and you keep working at it, and you can find that balance. That's one thing I help my clients do.
Mhm. Have your goals shifted as you've moved through your transition? Were there things that you started out going like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this, or I'm going to avoid this, this, and this, that have changed? Have you gone through it?
Yeah, when you talk about surgery, maybe it was before or pre, I don't know, but basically we talk about surgeries and think like I was going to have everything. I was going to have facial feminization, I was going to have breast augmentation, I was going to have vaginoplasty, I was going to have make sure my trach was shaved, like um, maybe more than that. I don't know. I was very big on having all these surgeries, and I let hormones take their course. And I've only had I first had a trach shave, so you can see a teeny little tiny scar that I'm still working on getting rid of. And then last year, I did orchiectomy just because I wanted to be able to not have testosterone ever produced in my body again. And I wanted a little bit of easier tucking and some things like that. And I'm preparing right now for the rest. Um, and I realized that I grew a natural C cup, just the natural hormone way, which I'm in love with. And I even said back when I was a B, I thought I can make that work, like it's okay, and my face, for me at least, was beautiful in the sense that like it kind of just shaped the way I wanted it to. And so I think we put too much pressure on, I have to look this exact way, kind of like we talked about with like the face app, like you've got to look this exact way to be feminine or all of these things. And I thought that I had to do all those things. I even thought about having vocal surgery, to be honest. That was one of my big ones, was like, I ended up, I was, yeah, you say, ooh, yeah, I know. And I'm like, and it works for some people. And you see some people on Instagram that it works great for. And there's even been times recently where I've been like, oh, but my voice could be better. I could do that. I did vocal therapy through a local hospital here to practice and make my voice more feminine for me. And I didn't do it for the world. I did it for me, because even when I was cross-dressing, that's what I was doing, or it felt I was doing, right? There was more to it. It was like I had to change my voice to feel more like Jen, and I wanted to feel like me. And so that was how I did it for me. It wasn't even, it was like literally like talking and singing or doing things. That's where I started changing my voice, was like I'd sing in my car. I listened to all kinds of girl songs like Taylor Swift or something and just sing along with it and change my voice. And I was doing it the whole completely wrong way. I was like just restricting my voice, like restricting everything up here. And then I learned through vocal therapy, it's all about pushing it forward and rather than just restricting your vocal cords. So yeah, everything changed. That's the biggest thing I say is like, if you think that everything that you want or think's going to happen the way that it does, your expectations are going to be blown away, because transition is never what you expect it's going to be.
Yeah.
Ever.
That is a key point. Whatever you have set out as this is the way it's going to go, it's not. It's just not. There are too many factors that, your body, your government, the medical system, your job and your insurance, all of those sort of things. Everything can play a part in it. But I do love getting to that point of going like, well, no, I love me. I just feel like me now. And I love the things that hormones have done, and it just feels right. So the rest is less important. So scared of even tracheal surgery, but definitely vocal surgery. That one scares the beans out of me. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Everybody always asks me. They say like, "Did that change was that to change your voice?" I was like, "No, that does not change your voice at all. It just got rid of an Adam's apple."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you've had just the trach shave and the orchiectomy. So you haven't gotten too far into it. Now, from what I've heard of like FFS and even GCS, bottom surgery, that the tracheal shave is the most painful. How was your experience with that?
No, not for me at all.
No?
I
Okay.
mean, it was easy for me. Like, it was just, I laid in bed for like a day or two, I think, or whatever, and I probably didn't need to do fully that. And I came out, I wasn't in a ton of pain or whatever. When I came out of orchiectomy, I was in pain. I was sitting on like pillow and like, and my friend drove me, and I was like, oh my gosh, every bump, you could feel every bump. And I was like, oh no, oh no. And so, no, I think that was a lot easier. And I obviously know that when I do vaginoplasty here in a couple of years that I'm preparing for, I expect it to be a whole lot worse than that. And I always say all of these surgeries are things that we go through. I mean, heck, I've gone through electrolysis, laser hair removal. My dog's talking. All of these things that we go through. we go through them for a reason, and they are proof that this is real and this is important. Because why the hell would I be doing this if I didn't need to?
Yeah. You know, we all I've even talked about it recently, a couple weeks ago, having problems with dysphoria coming in and feeling sort of negatively about my results here and there. I feel like we all, even at late stages in our transition, have moments of dysphoria and, kind of questioning ourselves, questioning the way we look, all of those things. What do you do in those moments when something like that'll strike you to find that validation in your identity and just feel like yourself?
Well, one, I try to focus on the fact that all of us look in the mirror and we still see the previous self, unless you've had maybe facial feminization or something like that. And I look at it and think about how many people have told me that I don't see that. And I also look back at my old pictures and think how much I've changed. And I also try to redefine how femininity is, and like and building that self-confidence that I really focus on is like, and if I'm really struggling with that, I guess in a sense, I try to avoid the mirror a little bit too,
Mm.
and like and give myself some self-love. I think self-love is a very important thing. Um, all of these things that I used to say, like, were like, this is kind of silly or whatever, like I'll do affirmations or say something positive to myself in a mirror. There's nothing wrong with that. And actually, it's really proven that it can really help. You're beautiful. You are strong. No, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Another thing that we kind of talk about a lot here, and it is an important thing, especially kind of going back to that old social media talk that we had at the beginning, looking away from what you want to achieve, what other people have achieved, what other people look like, and instead looking back, looking at where, how far you've come, what it was before, and really reminding yourself, because there is that little bit of a disconnect. You see yourself in the mirror and you're still seeing the old you, but you're not. You think you are, and you've got to go back and look at some of the old photos and just open up that shoebox and look at those and just go, oh, okay, that's right, that's what I look like. And yes, now that comparison, I can totally see the change. Whereas
Yeah.
when you're relying on this image in your brain of what you used to look like, it's distorted because so much of it is gone and you don't even realize it.
Exactly right. That's why I say focus on the past instead of like, where do I want to be? It's way better to look about like, this is where I've come from and this is where I am now. And yeah, you're right, because it's every day by day, we see the day by day change of us. And it's even like, let's say when I look at my kids, I say, they don't look that different day to day. But when I look back at a picture of it and I go, oh my gosh, you look like that a year ago? Holy moly. I do the same thing with myself. I look at myself
Yeah.
and I'll look back like 2 months ago and think, oh my gosh, I look so different now. This
Yeah.
is amazing.
Well, and there's also a different perspective thing that happens like in the moment versus later on. You talked earlier about growing your hair out. There was that middle stage where I was trying to grow it out and I wanted my hair to be this length and it wasn't this length, and so I hated it. And I was trying to figure out how to do like something that was kind of, I guess, just a little bit below my ears, and style it and make it look cute or whatever. And I just hated. I hated all the photos of me and everything. And have looked back recently and gone like, oh, my hair was so cute back then.
I know. I get that point. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard when you're going through it, like called the awkward stage of everything shorter or whatever, and you look back at it and you go, that didn't look bad, like that's okay, it's kind of cute, and there are times like I understand why cis women go like, I'm gonna cut my hair a little short, it'd be kind of cute and fun, and so I get all of that, absolutely. We put too much focus on where we want to be, like you want your hair to be long, and sometimes you don't appreciate where it is.
Yeah.
I tried to be different in that way, and as I was transitioning, people were like, you could get hair extensions, and I'm like, yeah, I could, but I also like the fact that I'm doing just like a cis woman does, and they just grow their hair out slowly their entire life, and then and I'm enjoying all the stages of my hair, and so I did my best to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, it can take a long time. I got to the point of just like not cutting my hair for, my entire transition, and I think it was maybe a little over 2 years ago now. I finally was like, okay, my ends are my ends are so split. Things look terrible. I need to get this cut, and so I went in and I actually my hair was getting to the point where anytime I sat in any kind of chair, it was getting caught. It was that long, and it was just getting too terrible. And I'm like, okay, just chop it. I had him take about 15 inches off, and got it back up to about just below shoulder length. And I was just like,
Yeah.
this is really cute. And I mean, like there were some serious pieces of hair on the ground, and I'm like, no, I really like this.
Uh-huh.
And now it's kind of back out to being about the same length again, and yeah, it's fun when you can get to that level of like, oh, I need to chop my hair off. That feels wonderfully feminine too.
Absolutely. And I will say when you even talk about how you didn't cut your hair, and I tell people like I think one of my secrets was that like I trimmed off a little bit every 3 or 4 months or whatever it was, and I think help my hair grow.
Hmm.
I've only let my hair's only grown for about 2.5 years to get this long. So yeah, it's hair's a big thing. Hair's a big thing for sure. My kids cut hair, sometimes like their own hair, and I'll get really mad at them for it or whatever, and I say, if anyone ever comes to my hair, you have no idea how much trouble you're going to be in.
This is not something we
You
joke about. No, you do not come anywhere
you do
near me
not.
with those scissors.
There's no joking about my hair. We go, we don't do
Touch it and die. Sorry, that's just the way it is.
it.
I love you, but touch it and die.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah.
I'm assuming that you have a pretty long list here, but is there anything that you feel that you've been able to accomplish in your life because of the fact that you're trans?
Hmm. Um, my biggest thing is my book, my business, all of these things. Like I wouldn't be able to help the people that I help if it weren't for going through the struggles that I went through in my life.
Mhm.
I went through a lot of things, and it's gotten me where I needed to be able to help the world. And I'm that. And we were talking about it before the show. Was like I'm the resource that I needed when I was growing up. That when I especially when I was trying to figure out who I was, and I would have paid somebody to help me kind of like work and figure some of these things out, and that's exactly what I do with my clients. I help people like find out where do you want to go, how who are you, where do you want to go, and how do we get there, and that's kind of that's what I love doing, and it brings me so much immense joy, being part of other people's journeys. And I wouldn't be able to be do that and changing the world. And like I'm very open about like with everybody that I was and am a Christian, and that I was really repressing myself so much, and I was hating the world, and my advocacy kind of stops there on the social media level for now. My That's really where I focus on is like trying to be open about my struggles in my past, and my repression and my hate of the trans community, of LGBT people. That's kind of where it stops for me because because I have kids and I have all these other things. So, but yeah, but that's kind of that's my answer.
What is your favorite thing that you have learned through your journey, either about yourself or the world around you?
I have learned that I think people are way more accepting. People are more loving than I thought they would be for me. Like the people around me, like, and maybe it's also how like I said, how I um, present to the world, and in that way of like just be kind to me. That's all I need. But I've also learned that the beauty of creation and all of it. Like, we are the beautiful part of this world. This is the part that I was like literally trying to say like this was wrong, and we are the beautiful part of this world. Diversity is beautiful, and that's what I get frustrated with when it comes to the world and how my old views were. Um, that's what makes the world beautiful. It's like that when not everybody's exactly the same.
And I guess I'm hoping this will be pretty close to what somebody was asking in the chat. I believe it was JC Amada. They asked, well, we'll get to theirs in a second. Mine is, what advice do you have to pass on to young or closeted trans folks out there?
I say, I know it's hard right now, and I know that you feel like restricted or you don't know who you are. It's okay to try on, it's okay to explore and try different things. And even if the world stops you from being how you want to be, then know that you're always valid in exactly who you are, and it's okay to explore, and it's okay to not have all the answers. And you're beautiful, and you'll get there when you need to be.
Wonderful. Real quick, Bryn has to sign off, so they're saying goodbye.
Bye, Bren. Thanks for coming.
They said I have to sign off. Thank you, Emily, and you are awesome, Jen. I love you, sis.
Love you too, Bren.
All right. I think this is a perfect time for a break. I told JC in the chat that we would get to their question once we get back. We'll take about a probably less than that, 5-minute break, and we'll be back with y'all in that time. Hang in there. We'll be back. Where's my, oh, it should be here. What advice do you have to pass on to young or closeted trans people out there?
And this is probably cliche to death, but I have to say that you have to do what's right for you at a time that's right for you. No one else can make that decision for you. And no one else can push you into something that you're not ready for. You can't live your life to make everyone else happy all the time. Because if you try and do that, you're going to fail. You're never going to make everyone happy.
I think getting a support network and at least telling a few close friends is huge. It's so huge, because those feelings of being alone and not being seen be really devastating. Having the support of a couple of really close friends or family members or whoever you trust is just absolutely huge.
Just find anybody to talk to that you can about this. If you feel like you're trans or you might be trans, or just find somebody you can confide in.
Having a group of friends, no matter how small, or somebody that can back you up and lift you up during it will mean the world. Because at first, everybody is scared. The more you go out, the more you build your confidence in yourself, the less it'll affect you. Everybody feels it and will continue to feel it. And it's just whether or not you let it overtake you and control you, or you let it go past.
Almost every relationship has grown deeper as a result of sharing this deeper part of myself. So I think there's something to finding your community to get to expand with and reinforce, but I think it then amplifies into almost every other relationship you can have.
I think that there's a struggle to transition the right way. Everyone's going to transition on a different timeline, in different order of operations, and as long as it happens how they want it to happen, that's a valid transition. And not transition is valid.
I do struggle with this. I should follow my own advice. Don't focus on regretting things, like not ever, like not starting early enough or anything like that, because then you'll just go through a loop and just constantly think about it, and it's not something you can change.
I didn't take anything for granted. Every positive change, even most of the time, I swear it was just a placebo where I noticed some growth in places that I wanted growth, or I would notice like really subtle things. I swear every single day for that first year. And those are I looked at the victories more than I looked at anything else. And I think that's super important during the first year.
So much of transitioning is was just waiting on something. You know, waiting for things to happen in your body, waiting for things to happen in your brain, waiting for surgeries, waiting for name changes. Be patient, because what's waiting for you at the end is so worth everything that you felt, all the hurt that you felt, all the anguish that you felt, all the anxiety. It just makes everything so much better. I can't describe the feeling of waking up and getting to be me, this person that I've wanted to be my entire life, this person that I've known I was my entire life. It just makes everything so worth it.
I would go back and say, look, you're going to go through a lot of crap and it's going to be hard, but it's going to make you a better person to go through it, and you'll be fine. Just know you'll be fine. Like, that's the main point they want to make.
You have to be you. You can't hide who you are. You have to be you. And I know that it's going to be scary and you're going to get bullied a lot. So be you, but do it in a safe way. Like, don't ever put yourself in danger. But also, don't cower down because it's going to be hard. Because life is hard.
It is scary, but hopefully it's worth it. And most of the time it is worth it to truly be you, whatever form that looks like. You know, I've always been happy, but I didn't know, and I didn't know peace and joy the way that I know it now. And it was a bit of a struggle at first, but I would do it a million times over. And one of the things that I say often in my lives is, do it scared. Yeah, it's scary. Then do it scared.
Whatever you choose to do, whether it's come out or not come out, transition or not transition, start hormones, have surgery, any and all of it, is whatever you do it for you. Do it for you and you alone. Don't do it for anybody else. Don't do it because your friends are doing it, or don't not do it because your parents said no, or whatever you do it for you. Because in the end, the person you're most accountable to in this life is yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever you're comfortable with, like even if you're trans and you know it, but you're legitimately fine with not doing anything about it, do that for you, and that's okay. There's no wrong way to be trans. Just be you. The only person you're ever answerable to at the end of the life is yourself.
Your journey is your own. No one can tell you how to transition. No one can tell you what it's supposed to look like, because we're all different.
I had moments coming out that I did it on other people's timeline because they asked me to, and were I to do it again, I wouldn't do that. You know, it's something that's very personal. Either, you know, you might not want to come out, or you might want to come out and people are stopping you. And I think it's a very personal thing. And so making sure that's on your timeline is important.
You need to always ask questions about who are you, and is that really you, or is that something that has been manufactured for you and you have just latched your identity to that?
Love yourself. Love who you know that you truly are. And when you do, you will inspire and compel other people to love you as well.
Give yourself room, you know, imagine yourself as that seed, and that all the energy, all the life, all the creativity, all that you could ever imagine is already there. It's already inside of that seed, and all the nourishment is already inside of that seed. Mm-hmm. Now, the soil you choose to plant yourself in, all right, the sun that you choose to receive how many times you choose to water yourself, who you let water you, that is totally up to you, and you have autonomy no matter what situation you're in, right? Know that how you choose to love yourself in your mind and your sacred space is the most important, and no one can take that away from you, even if you have to fake it until you make it for right now.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Transgender Show. Let's go ahead and bring our guest back on as well. Jennifer, hello.
Hi, I'm having so much fun tonight, Emily.
I'm so glad you are. Right before we went on our break, we got a question from JC in the chat. What is your number one rule as a coach? I know this is kind of a big thing to jump right into, but yeah, let's get into your coaching. What's your big unbroken rule?
My big unbroken rule is I don't tell anyone who they are. And it's my rule within my coaching community as well, that we are all there to support each other and who we are, where we are in our journeys, but no one's there to be that person to break somebody's egg, and say, like, you're trans, you need to transition, all of these things, because I believe that people need to come to that themselves. And so I don't push, and that's one of my biggest things is people always worry about, like, one of my clients I'm working with right now on just onboarding right now, they're like, I don't want to be pushed, I don't want anybody to, push me over the edge, in that sense. And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do. I don't tell anybody who they are. I help them find it within themselves. So it's a great question.
Yeah, and it's such a deeply personal journey. We've talked a lot about, having to focus on yourself, not looking to what others are doing or any of that sort of thing, making sure that your journey is your own, those sort of things. But yeah, even the question of who you are, what you want to be, what you need, it's very deeply personal, and you can't push anybody, but also, like, yeah, pushing anybody is just going to have a negative impact on them, and probably, give them undue pressure. Seeing where I'm at, if you come to me 8 years ago and been like, see, look, you're going to do this, go, it would not have worked. It would not have worked. It would not have worked.
I would have told you were crazy if you told me that,